So this is just a quick video about this Tandberg Solvsuper 12C receiver, or Capacitor, because it's got the C option, the cassette deck. So this was my dad's, probably bought around 1975. It's the machine I used for many years as a child to record music off the charts, off the radio, listen to AM stations, particularly shortwave all around the world, listen to Radio 4 comedy, got into that through this machine. Yeah, a lot of time spent with this. So I did a full service just this last week, so I'll go through some of the faults and some of the things I did to fix. But just taking a look at the machine, obviously you've got the big tuning dials, very nice feel to them. They've got flywheels behind them, so they kind of spin nicely. They feel very nice. Got a nice tuning indicator for AM and FM. For FM we've got, you can defeat the AFC and turn off the muting there. Got the headphones on the left, of course. Bass and treble, I think they were plus and minus 12 dB, so quite a lot of boost and cuts you could apply. You've got a mono button here, which not only defeats the stereo FM if you have a noisy marginal station, but also just any audio source will put into mono as well. You've got a tape monitor loop, which my dad used with a Tandberg open reel deck, and a phono input, which he used with a ceramic cartridge, but there's a switch at the back to switch for moving coil, lower output level. And on the right here we've got a microphone input, which we can select with this button. Normally just have it in the radio section to operate the radio, or indeed the phono and tape, external tape. But as soon as you press play, it will play from the tape. Let's just put a tape in and pretend we're going to record something there, so we can see the LED signal strength meter, manual record level here, of course. So as you see, it's not even a stereo indicator, it just shows the peak of either the left or right channel, whichever's the highest, and only 3 segments in green, and the 1 plus 3. But you know, it worked to know how close to the overload point you were, so it did the job, even though it doesn't look very impressive these days. I got the original manuals here. They came separately because you could get the receiver section without the cassette, and then if you did get the cassette option like this one, you got this extra manual. Just a quick look around the back of the unit. You've got a couple of covers here. This one covers the tape circuitry, and there's some pots here for adjustments. This panel here covers the FM tuner section. A couple of FM tuner cores there that I haven't needed to adjust, but you can do if you need to. Aerials here, FM, AM with earth, and then your DIN inputs, and then 2 pairs of DIN speaker outputs here. And oh, this was the magnetic ceramic cartridge switch, which changed the gain of the phono stage. So this is what the unit looks like with the covers off. Let's just run through some of the faults that I had and what I did. So the first thing I looked at was the cassette unit. This is now assembled, but it's easy to take off with 2 screws here and the other side here. This slides out. You can also operate it with the unit sort of diagonally resting on the endpoints. So I replaced the 2 belts. There's one main drive belt that goes underneath all around. There's another one that drives the counter. Replaced those. Did a full clean, of course. All surfaces, all surfaces that touch the bands underneath. Applied rubber rejuvenator to all the surfaces, the rubber surfaces underneath, and these idler wheels here as well. Now that actually cured a problem which I'd had. I almost always remember this unit having from the 80s. That the fast wind would work, the play and record would be fine, but the rewind would have very little torque, and you'd have to change the direction of the cassette over. But if we just try that now, we can see that's absolutely fine, no problem with that. So I did that, adjusted the heads, demagnetized them, and it was never the best cassette in the world. No Dolby, and the heads are a little bit worn, but it plays reasonably well. There's a bit of wear and flutter still. There was quite a lot actually initially, but just replaying on a loop over and over again seems to have reduced that. So maybe there was some indentation in one of the idler wheels that's just softened up a little bit and has become a bit more even. I'm not sure, but I think that's probably as good as I'm going to get it without well, a lot of work that I can't really invest in. So anything more to say about this? Adjusting the tape speed. The tape speed was quite a lot out. I think it was about 3% wrong. But as is traditional in this age of unit, the motor has its own circuit for regulating, and I can't quite see it. Maybe if I get close up here, there we go. You can just about see a little hole there with a kind of cover. Push a little screwdriver in there, and you can adjust the speed. So I've actually got a test tape here which I've been using. So there's a 3 kHz tone on there, also timed exactly to I think 10 minutes. So that's now well within 1%, which is good. So the tape speed is good. So general things, all the potentiometers, all the switches were dirty, sticking, crackling. So gave them a good clean with contact cleaner. If we are on the subject of potentiometers, if we look at 2 of these here, you will see that the plastic from the knob, there's a long insert that goes in and then attaches to this white part which is attached to the potentiometer itself. This was cracking, so the black part here was spinning, so I unsoldered these, took them out, glued them with super glue, and then bound with a bit of wire to hold them in place, and that works quite nicely now. They're absolutely fine. Hopefully they should last a few more years. Some of these switches are a little bit hard to get contact cleaner in, but a lot of it's on the board, but it should be okay. Check various capacitors. They seem to be pretty okay actually. I mean, there were various opinions of whether you should replace all of the capacitors, and sometimes I've done that in the past, but I think now I'm leaning towards if they appear okay, then just to leave them in. There was a fault that was intermittent and developed into a permanent fault while I was looking at this, that the FM unit would not produce any sound. Now the signal meter would register as you tuned, but there was no sound, so I traced that to the decoupling capacitor here on the second FM demodulator chip, and that had become a short, so the power supply to that chip was basically not getting through. So replacing that cured that problem. So also in the FM section, well, the biggest headache was this band. So this had snapped, and it was a devil of a job to try and work out where a replacement should go. So I've replaced it with some string, but it's a reasonably complicated system of this wheel having notches and holes, and the string can obviously loop round in various different ways, only one of which actually performs the function that you want. I thought I'd got it yesterday and put it all back together again, and it was turning nicely. The only problem was, as I was turning down the dial left to the lower frequencies, it was actually turning the tuning capacitor the opposite way. So my heart sank, and I had to take it all apart and work out the way to get this turning the right way, given how it rotates around this spindle and these wheels here. Interestingly, this string here goes very close to this bulb, but it doesn't. The bulbs don't get very hot, so I guess that's okay, and it must have always been that way. So this is now working quite nicely. I've glued this back on, and you know, you have to get the position as a compromise. As you can see on this scale, it's highly non-linear, and again, through many years, decades, it's always been a bit off. So I managed to find this capacitor here, which is a tuning capacitor on this FM tuner block. Very, very sensitive. Tiny amount of change there will shift the whole tuning scale. So I managed to get a compromise there. So it's now mostly accurate for most of the range. So that's an improvement there. Also, on this rather nice tuning signal strength meter, which is very nice. You can see how the AFC will pull in like that. So you have the AFC on and off, so it will pull into the centre of the station and reduce drift. This is common on tuners before digital synthesizers came in, of course, and everything was quartz locked. But I remember a slight problem here where the AFC would pull slightly off tune. There's a trimmer here, which I was able to tweak, so that just offsets a slight bias on the varicap in the tuner unit, to make sure it's actually pulling in right on centre. So that's now aligned. The AM section, I didn't really do anything on that. I checked some various points, and it was sounding good. It's got quite a narrow IF bandwidth, and it was yeah, I really didn't feel the need to tweak anything. I didn't want to adjust anything and make it worse. There didn't seem to be any obvious faults, so I've just left it. And the band, I mean, it seems sturdy enough, so I haven't replaced that either. That's working well. On the amplifier section, it was basically working. I did just adjust the biasing points, DC offset. There's actually 2 pots here per channel, which again are quite sensitive. Only a tiny amount of change on each of those will affect the DC operating point quite significantly. So I've just tweaked those slightly according to the circuit. Thankfully I had the circuit here, which was very useful. and that's pretty much it. The FM section is now quite nice. Sometimes a little bit noisy on stereo, but actually on a strong station, some of the stations in the mid-band are very nice. So I think I'm going to call that a day, really, and pack it up. And yeah, that's good. I'm happy with that.